Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Product in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight on some of the exceptional product leaders we have as part of the LA product community. Welcome 2023. Very excited for another season of Product in LA. Very excited for our guest today. Miles Montes is joining us.
Hey, what's up, Ethan? Glad to be on the show today.
Hey, man. Really excited for you to be here, Miles. Excited for you to kick off season 2. This is going to be great. As always, Product in LA is brought to you by Uruit. They're a digital product studio with 15 years of experience partnering with companies that want to challenge their industries. Whether their client is a startup or an industry titan, they can provide them with the right blend of creative design and robust engineering to create an experience that people love. They are a team of skilled experts that will help strategize, validate, design, and develop new products or improve existing ones, becoming an extension of the company's team. To learn more, please go to uruit.com. That's URUIT.com. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They're LA's largest product professional organization with over 3,000 members. They put on monthly events. This year in 2023, there's going to be a terrific lineup. January, at least through June, they have the first half of the year already scheduled. Very excited for that. To learn more, go to pma.la. They're also home of a product mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented backgrounds to help build a more diverse and better next gen of product people. To learn more about the mentorship program, go to pma.la/mentorship. Our guest today is Miles Montes. He is the principal product manager at Service Titan. His past roles include co-founder and chief product officer of DocSpace, as well as Latinx, and was at one point a senior PM at ADP. And one interesting thing you might learn about Miles is that back during the COVID lockdown, he was founder of Product Sync. That was a clubhouse club, and they built a following of over 10,000 members. That's really cool, Miles. It's a terrific way to spend lockdown. Love to learn more about it.
Yeah, definitely, Ethan. COVID and the pandemic was an interesting time. And the era of Clubhouse when everything started to everyone wanted a place to be. And I think Clubhouse was that spot. And so it was like the digital Soho house. As a part of it, I just got on there and just started talking about product. Soon I invited a friend to be a co-host who's also in product. And then we were like, why don't we have a third person? And we brought in the design leader to be another co-host. And then the room started getting interesting. At one point we had the head of Instagram, in the room. We had people from other top tech companies, and we started having really interesting conversations on just product problems.
That's amazing. And to build it up to 10,000 is no small feat. And back in those days, people were looking for content, and it's awesome to have built the community that was available there.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
And the content is very hard, and I think that's probably why we're not doing it anymore. But it's now evolving, and the cool thing about it is, we're going to turn Product Synced into an SPV or an angel syndicate, where a lot of the product engineering and design leaders that were a part of the community and also in our network to kind of join forces and start investing in startups too.
Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome to see it evolve from the Clubhouse, which, as lockdown faded away, so did some of these opportunities to meet online versus, meeting in person. So that's an amazing way to take it and bring it into the, 2023 and beyond.
Definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and very excited to learn more about your background. So Miles, it's the trajectory you've had. You've gone from PM to founder back to PM. Love to learn more about this journey of yours. And what was your origin story? Where did it start? Did you see yourself becoming a product manager at some point? Did you see yourself becoming a founder? Like, how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, I would say let's take it back to me being a little Miles.
Okay, we'll start with little Miles.
When people ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and it was two things. It was, I want to be a baseball player,
Yep.
or I want to build a bunch of companies. And I have no idea why, but I think part of it was that my dad was pretty entrepreneurial, and I was always very interested in tech. I was a gamer as a kid. I was a big Halo fan. So for any Halo players out there,
Nice.
I know the fanatics are still out there. And that's where actually I would say I first got interested in tech. And the reason why is because I would play, Xbox Live, and I'd see all these dudes like cheating, and like they were running fast. They like modded the game, and I was like, all right, I need to figure out how they're doing that. And so I went down the rabbit hole. There was like this forum I went on that taught you how to mod your Xbox in the game. And so, yeah, I did it. And then I started people started paying me, because what happened was Halo would start banning your account when they figured out you were cheating or you got reported enough.
Okay.
And so I would get these 3-month free trials from people, so I could help them rank up. Well, me not being the smart kid at the time, I didn't cancel those memberships. So I just remember my mom being really pissed off one day, like getting this massive bill of like 12, year-long memberships. So that came to a short range very quickly. But after I started getting bored, and I was like, how can I started seeing people hack the network, and they were lagging people out of games. And I was like, okay, I need to step my game up a little bit. I learned how to do that. And so I started lagging people out of games.
And what does that mean?
Meaning like I would be able to figure out all of the IP addresses in the game while we got connected.
Okay.
I would take down everyone's IP address that was in my game, like that we were playing together with, so I wouldn't lag them out by accident. And what I would do is I would lag like one person out like completely. They would just lose connection. And then it was like 4 versus 3. And then some people I would just like mess with their connection so that they would be like lagging throughout the game. And so people caught on to it. Xbox got smarter. And what they ended up doing is, instead of banning accounts, they started banning Xboxes. And so they banned
the device versus the account.
Yeah, they banned my device, and then I was like, "Sorry, Mom. Now we need to go buy another $300 Xbox."
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then so then that I got tired of that. Then this forum also had a design area, and I used to see all these people design things in Photoshop, and that's how I got into design. And so I self-taught myself how to use Photoshop for like 2 years.
Okay.
Like 3D, like in Cinema 3D design. Although I wasn't the greatest at it, I appreciated it, and I've learned a lot of design fundamentals there. But okay, fast forward, I got into college at Cal Poly Pomona for computer engineering.
Okay, so you went to school for like CSE.
I started, I left with a business degree, and so this is part of the story. I realized that I didn't really know much. I knew I wanted to be in tech. I didn't know what computer engineering was, or computer science, or the difference between the two. But if I had to go back, I probably would have been more in computer science than enginering.
And actually, I don't know the difference between the two. What is the difference between computer engineering and computer science?
The easier difference is just software versus hardware.
Okay.
And so we're both in software now mostly. I mean, it wouldn't have been that much of a difference if I started on the hardware side first. But the way I saw it, I was a senior when I figured it out. I just got bad advice from a dean saying I was like one math class behind, so I should switch. And then, it was just, it wasn't great. But I figured out my senior year that I didn't want to graduate with the degree I was getting. It was a business degree, and I had an uncle who worked at Disney at the time who would tell me all these cool projects he was always working on. And he worked in program management, so he worked closely with product people. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like what I want to do. And he's like, you should just go take like a weekend course at General Assembly and see if you like product. So I went and did that and was like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do, but I'm not switching my degree with like one quarter or like a couple quarters left in my year. So
yeah,
what I told myself was I'm going to take a job on the business side, which I did at ADP for a year. And I told myself, I'm going to give myself 2 years to land this product role. And if I don't land it, then I'm going to quit this job and figure it out. And, I started applying. I got one interview. They never got back to me. And then no one else would reach out to me. I think a lot of it was just My resume wasn't there. I didn't have the relevant experience. A lot of people at the time were only really hiring like Stanford or Harvard MBAs. And so I was like, you know what? I don't know if you allow cursing on here, but I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go build my first company then. And so I went and I started going to events, panels. I went to a hackathon. We came in second place. I ended up working with the founder of that. She was a visual design artist, and we started building something called Parade, which was building video into greeting cards, or bringing greeting cards, I guess just more into the modern area, you know? And so what it was is that we, like, let's say if it was your birthday, right? And we invited the rest of the PMA leadership team, or I invited them, everyone would put their, own video at their own time. The software would stitch those videos together, edit it for like any lighting or bad audio, and then it would shoot it off to you on the day of your birthday. And so ironically, there's actually a really cool company doing that now, and actually business around it.
Yeah. No, when did you do this? Because I think in that one feels like it's been around for only 2 or 3 years total.
Yeah. This had to have been like in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, somewhere around that time. And so this is where I started to build my network. I met other product people, other engineering leaders, investors. But really my intent was to just learn how to do product. And I'll speed up a little bit. I know I'm taking quite a bit of time.
No. This is all we're doing here. That's why we're here.
And so ADP at the time sponsored. So the best advice I got was, if you want to land in the role, get into the role that you can now, and then work your way horizontally. And so ADP sponsored. And the best part here is that PMA at the time was putting on a conference at Hulu. And ADP sponsored that conference. I met all of the directors there. They invited me to a happy hour. I met everyone there. It was more like a culture check to see if I would fit in.
Yeah.
Then they invited one, a product leader named Nacho Andrade, who's I would say a large part of my success and what I'm doing now is due to him. I did a mock interview. It seemed like I did pretty well. Then, he reached out and was like, hey, there's a couple roles. You should apply to a couple of them. I did, and with literally on the 2-year timeline, right when I was going to the review process is when I landed the role. And so, I spent 5 years at ADP. I rose pretty quickly. And I think it's just, a lot of commitment, dedication around, the career. I was mostly in the platform space, so a lot of back-end API development, owning onboarding experiences as well. Decided I had the entrepreneurial bug again, and I started meeting with founders. Picked, one to start Shop Latinx, which was the e-commerce marketplace. Interesting. It was just me and the other co-founder. There's no funding, and right when the pandemic hit is right when I quit my job. So. My parents were like, is that the smartest decision? Like, are you sure you want to do this? You have a house. I have I own my house, so I have a mortgage to pay for. And, but I just had zero reluctance. I had zero qualms. I just knew I was going to raise the money. I had a lot of self-confidence, and, we, with some of my 401k and some of my savings, we hired a couple of people that helped us get into Techstars. We used the Techstars money to build the MVP. Launched the MVP, used that momentum and the revenue we generated there to go raise $1 million in pre-seed.
Nice.
Decided that consumer was not anything in my background, and parted ways there and started DocSpace shortly after, which was one of the founders I had initially met with. And
which is more the platform that you were an expert at.
Exactly. It's more B2B SaaS, vertical fintech. And so essentially what we were doing is building like the Shopify or Service Titan for clinicians. And so we spent, I spent about close to 2 years there. We raised, close to 4 million in capital. We made a lot of strides. The company's still around. It just didn't, sometimes it doesn't work out with co-founders. And, I would say people in the tech space, would understand that.
Oh yeah.
And now I'm back at Service Titan. And the best part is the first boss I had at ADP is my boss here at Service Titan. So, relationships are important. And that's a big theme in my career is building planting the seeds and building those relationships for the long term.
Yeah, and I think that's something to keep in mind, especially, I mean, in LA, especially because it's such a small tech scene. I mean, we have tens of thousands of workers here, but it feels like there's really only like a second or third degree of separation from pretty much anyone. I'm sure it's like, someone who's worked with someone or like kind of come across them. So to always manage those relationships, wherever you are in your career is always important. That's a terrific lesson to share with the folks at home.
Definitely.
In terms of the day to day, how is product different now than when you first started, or is it more similar than it was now than it was before? And if so, what was it like between the startup and kind of the platform product management you're doing right now?
Yeah, I would say the day to day, I'd say it's pretty much the same. I think the product field has evolved for sure. When I first started, there was no such thing as product operations.
Okay, yeah.
So that came roaring onto the scenes like right before the pandemic hit. And now it's full fledged. At Service Titan, we have a full product operations team, which is really cool because you don't realize how much you're taking on that front that can be standardized or automated. So that's one thing I'd say that has evolved. The work itself, I would say, is the same. So the more repetition you get, I would say the easier it is to see where things are broken or where you need to place more of your focus. Yeah, I would say those two things. In terms of the difference between like working as a startup or a startup founder versus like back into a more, well, I would say Service Sign is a later stage startup. Still feels very startup-y, just later stage startup-y. And ADP was very, big in corporate. I think it's just the speed. The speed is the biggest thing. It's funny. I was reviewing a process document that I created when I was at DocSpace, and reviewing it with like a different version of that with my team currently, and the timelines were like, what? Like, there's no way we can do this or this in 2 days. And it was just like, yeah, we're gonna have to update these timelines a little bit because now there's dependencies that we have to consider in a much bigger company where things are more integrated in a platform environment that take a little bit more time to do discovery or research. And as a founder, I think it's just you feel very responsible for the success of the company, and so there's a lot emotionally and a lot of stress that comes with it. And then you're also dealing, with everyone's emotional and mental health and making sure everyone's okay and they feel good about coming into work. So yeah, it's just a different, I think that experience has helped me though. It's made my job as a product leader much more impactful because I've been in that role to understand like how much impact a leader can have on their team.
Oh yeah, and you have like the wide breadth of what needs to be done in a startup world. You're wearing a million different hats, whereas at a larger, more mature companies where they have like a product operations group where your product operations and oftentimes 7 different other things. Sometimes designers, sometimes data management, sometimes all the time being pressed to move things along quickly. And then to your point, when you're the founder, it was your own savings and 401k on the line. So every decision you make is like blood money versus, not that it's not tough decisions to make in a larger corporation, but it's not as impactful on your personal well-being when it's a startup. That is a savage and rough and tumble world, but also very exciting too.
100%. I think a lot of people glorify it, but it's a very challenging, very difficult, and it does take a lot out of you. Like the runs. Whenever I would go on a run, that would that would be the best run I've ever had every time.
That's awesome. The fresh air.
Yeah.
That's terrific. And I guess, this being LA, really interested to keep it grounded here in LA. And, the last question we always like to ask our guests are, what's the most LA thing that's happened to you, either product or not?
That's a good question. Most LA thing. Yeah, I think, maybe a couple of things. One, clearly there's a lot of entertainment and gaming consumer startups that are based in LA. I think the coolest thing I would say is when I was at Shop Latinx is, we got connected to CAA, and
nice.
We were, which was cool in it itself, but actually there's a better one. So we had someone on our team that had a connection to Romeo Santos, which is a very popular Latin singer.
Yeah.
And we were able to send our deck to him. He didn't invest, but the fact that we, had some connection there, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Baron Davis is also big in the space. There were conversations with him. But I would say outside of that, with DocSpace, our lead investor, Slauson & Co., and, shout out to AJ and Austin over there. They're great investors. We pitched them, with the first company, it wasn't a fit, pitched them at DocSpace, and it was a fit. I don't know if that's an LA thing, but they also are very deep into the entertainment space as well. And I think it just, as a founder or even as a product person, right? Like a lot of times the founders will get this advice around a no now doesn't mean a no later. And that's also true as a product person, and sometimes you just come back stronger and with more data, more evidence, more customer feedback. And, and the more you talk about it, the more you know about it, and the more other people understand it. So, I think that's just a good theme to think about.
That's great. I know now it doesn't mean a no later. That's impactful. I've definitely seen it. I've never heard it said in that way. So that's terrific. That's one to take home. That's great. Awesome. Well, want to thank our guest again, Miles Montes. Thanks again for joining us here, Miles. Great having you.
Thanks, Ethan. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And it's always fun telling the early little Miles stories. So,
I mean, a whole world that I had no idea that, opened up. I had zero clue that they were hacking into the games to make them faster. Zero clue that they were playing with each other's connectivity. And I guess last bonus question, so you ended up at ADP. Was there ever a thought that you'd end up in a gaming space? And I guess, is there still a thought that one day you might get back into gaming professionally?
I still play,
Nice.
like I'll play like 2K or I'll play Fortnite, admittedly, with my off time sometimes. But I don't think I would ever play at I think I have a passion for building vertical SaaS products. And I really love helping small business build their businesses. So, at ADP, our big market share was in small business. Shop Latinx was helping other small business in a marketplace. DocSpace was helping small business clinicians. Service Titan was helping small business contractors. And so, I'm for the little guy. But, I have a younger brother who's very much interested in gaming, and I'm sure he's going to go down that path. So at least one of us will.
That's awesome. And it's so fun to hear you, with the passion you have for the things that you're doing. Yes, you game, and yes, you have something you did, and it's fun, but, building the SaaS platforms for the little guys is what keeps you driving. So that's awesome. That's a terrific answer, and certainly something I'd love to a note I'd love to end on. So again, thank you one more time, Miles, for joining these terrific stories, and love hearing from you.
Thanks, Ethan. Glad to be a part of the show and talk soon.
Yeah, and also like to thank our sponsors again. That's Product Managers Association Los Angeles. You can find them at pma.la. They'll have monthly events, looks like through 2023, so very exciting. And to Uruit, that's a product design and development shop You can learn more about them at uruit.com. That's uruit.com. Thank you all for joining us again, and we'll see you next time on Product in LA.